What up, y'all, and welcome to Daytona International Speedway for 2024 FBRL Napa Truck Series Daytona 250k qualifying. We've got 44 drivers vying for 42 spots. Well, to be factual, 14 drivers vying for 12 spots. So we've got 14 go or go home trucks that are going to take time here. One lap around the 2.5 mile Daytona International Speedway. 12 of them will make the race. 2 of them will go home. That is a stock difference from last year where we had 27 drivers trying to make the 12 spots. First up is Angel Gutierrez for the brand new Gutierrez Autosport. Angel ran a single race for Easy Racing last year, replacing Justin Johnson halfway through the season. Qualified 40th, finished 40th, DNQ'd the rest of the season. But Gutierrez is out here with his own team, looking to show what he's really capable of. And obviously, with it being the final season here for the FBRL Series, that is for the Napa Truck Series, the Hardee's National Series, and of course the grand legendary Sony Cup Series. Only 22 races for Angel to do so as he begins his first lap. Now, if you think back to a year ago, lap time that won the pole was a 47.969 set by the 84 Single Z Racing Honda that was then driven by Griffin Lapo McDermott. He was joined on the front row by AJ Jones, who set a 49.974. And then the only other driver who set a lap time under a 47 was Glenn Mixon, teammate to AJ Jones at Coyote Autosport. So be curious to see how many trucks we see hit under a 47.0. Speeds appear to be similar so far. The slowest time around here last year was, I believe, a 47.8. And Gutierrez will do better than that, 47.661 for the first lap of the afternoon. Second truck on track is going to be Jared Vereshchagin. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Vereshchagin has had an interesting path to a full-time truck series ride. About 2-3 years ago, he was a test driver for Bishop Family Racing. Never got a full-time ride. Was always talking to team owners saying, "Hey, I'm looking for a full-time ride to prove what I'm worth." But just never got the call, which was quite curious because team owners love someone who is vocally looking to be active. And Vereshchagin just kind of got turned down until this year. Was originally going to drive for Skyglass Garage, but that team just mysteriously disbanded. Vereshchagin showed up to the shop one day and just found a for lease sign on the shop door. Just so happened, Genesis Engineering, known to make late driver hirings, was looking for a driver for their 2024 program. And Vereshchagin landed here in the C-End Chevrolet. Genesis now the only team receiving support from S3 Motorsports after the controversial shutdown of TJ Smith Incorporated early last year. It'll be a 47.377 for Vereshchagin, so almost 0.3 faster than the 24 of Gutierrez. Next up's the 00 of Charles Sanford. This is one of several part-time trucks that will need to qualify on time in the top 8 drivers out of these 14 go-or-go-home vehicles in order to make the show. Charles going to be running 5 races for this number 00 Chevrolet. This is an entry from new team Butcher Motorsports, which originally had the intention of running full time, but due to driver shortages in the market, has instead opted to go part-time. This truck is a fully supported effort from S3 Motorsports. So any type of speed you see out of this 00 might be a sign of things to come for the 3 full-time trucks driven this year by Arya Carmona, Jeff Bolton, and Ricky Freeman Jr. As this is not tracking to be a terrible time by no means by Charles, who is once again full-time in the Sony Cup Series for Shade Benyako Racing. And as he comes to finish his lap, 190 miles an hour and a 47.336, as we see Charles top of the current three. Next on the track is Samuel England, 2019 Napa Pro Series champion. England drove a couple of races for the number 83 Red Bull Racing Truck entry last year. That entry, currently no plans for them this year. So England was looking to make 5 starts in the Napa Truck Series this year. The series he got his footing in when it was the Napa Pro Series. And Little Falls Motorsports, they were wondering, all offseason, was Young Motorsports going to keep the 57 number for 2024? Well, they finally told them that no, they were not. So Little Falls, which has the 57 and 75 in the Hardee's National Series, opened up this team. It's a part-time effort going to be sponsored by Love's Travel Centers, and England will be piloting this truck for 5 races, starting with potentially the Daytona 250k. Well, I say potentially, but past champions provisional is a thing. So England, regardless of the lap time he sets here, will be locked into the show. But he might not have to worry about using it at all. A 47.221 for England sends him to the top of the board as the first Honda on track. Here comes the first Ford, driven by European Benedict Murdo III. Now, Murdo made several starts for Breeding Enterprises last year in the Sony Cup Series, and he joins new team Full Frontal Motorsports here for a rookie campaign in the Napa Truck Series, teammate alongside the number 11, driven by Toby Christie. Now, the interesting thing about this team is they are fielding Fords, and they acquired a lot of their bodies from the now defunct Solgi Performance team, which ran Mercedes. So slightly used bodies, old tech. That team shut down midway, 3/4 of the way through last year. So not in a complete hole is this team by no means, but a hole potentially nonetheless, as Murdo sets a 47.433. But one thing that came with buying Solgi's assets is that they got the owner points, as those trucks had attempted what was deemed last year as a full-time effort number of starts. Next up on the track is our first Ram, driven by Mac Johnson. This is the Gatlin Downey Incorporated entry. Now, Gatlin Downey Incorporated only fielding 1 truck full-time this year, down from 2 trucks. They had entered the 35 and 65 for the last, I believe, 3 seasons. And just another effect of the shortage in the driver pool. Mac Johnson, the only one GDI could find. But this team has been around the Napa Truck Series the entire time, I believe. And they've got pace. They've just had to have found the right driver. And Mac Johnson might be that driver, because Mac has an incredible drive to be as good as a driver as possible, get better, and learn everything he can. So this might be the best year for the number 35 since Malik Nevins drove for this truck back in 2021. It's a 47.244 for Johnson, and that'll place him in second for the time being. Next up is a truck that qualified, I believe, in the top 10 last year, and that's the number 87, driven by Michael Miller, no longer a rookie, as Savage Racing enters their 2nd season. You can no longer say, oh yeah, that's the old Sanders Performance Autosport truck, because this team is a team of its own now. As Miller, with pretty good speed there starting at the line. If you look at the top of the overlay, the mile per hour is a pretty good indicator of a potential lap time you might see, and I believe Miller might be the first truck we've seen be at a strong 190 miles an hour going into turn 1, and you see that truck already at it off of turn 2. Now 191 down the back, Can it hit 192? Oh, for a split second there, he got it. So we'll have to see what kind of lap time this will be for Miller. So come off of turn number 4. And the survey says it's a 47.108 for Michael Miller. So that will put him locked into the top 8, as it's top 8 lock in, and we'll start wherever all the top 30 times sort out, along with those top 8 times from these go or go home drivers. It is now currently looking to be 2nd to 7th in potential danger to have to use a provisional, as James Ellison will begin his lap, and he's going just as fast, if not faster, than Michael Miller was. Actually faster. He just clocked 191 for a split second there going into turn 1. Ellison driving his own number 31 truck here. This is a part-time entry, so he has to get in on time, and he's looking pretty safe here so far on this lap. This 31 truck originally was driven by Austin Runkle last year before Alexa Luchon dipped from the series with a sudden retirement following Richmond. And Runkle was moved to the number 3 truck. The number 31 truck shut down. And then those owner points went to another team. And Ellison with the fastest time so far. It's a 47.016. And if this were last year's qualifying, that would have put him in 4th. So a blistering fast time, just a couple hundredths away from a 46.9. Next on track is Toby Christie. We saw Toby run the number 71 Nova Sport Chevrolet for the first 6, 8, 9, something like that, races a year ago, until Nova Sport eventually shut that truck down, noting funding as the main concern. Chrissy was left without a ride. He was not hired back, but a surprise, and a pleasant surprise, to see him back in the Napa Truck Series for the final season. And he'll be sponsored by Realtree the entire year. So far, looking to be maybe a better lap than his teammate Murdo set. Not sure if this will be good enough to consider him locked in just yet. As he comes to the start-finish line, it's a 47.230. And now you see the dividing line indicating where the top 8 sit. And Angel Gutierrez currently the first driver out, but Gutierrez still with a shot to make the race through use of a provisional. As now Samuel England has been locked into the show via a top 8 lap time. Next up on track is Seth Cole, back with Bishop Family Racing. And this does not look like it is going to be a good lap at all. Only going 186 miles an hour at the start-finish line. Barely hits 189 going into turn 1, and slowing down the 187 through the corner. Hope everyone is having a good time. I know no music on this video. No truck noises either at that. So it's just me. Just the me. Your number 1 favorite Napa Truck Series commentator. Oh, yep. Bad lap time indeed. Seth Cole immediately outside the top 8 with a 47.506. Now, Nick Breeding has brought back the pink truck once again and convinced Morris Motorsports to field the truck for him, because he couldn't drive his own truck because Lane Sanders is driving it. So Breeding in the number 55 pink Bush AF Toyota, As if you missed it during the offseason, Breeding Enterprises is now a Toyota team, which is quite crazy after all the success they've had with Ram, including a 2021 championship from Luke Martin. But Breeding tracking pretty good here. This truck, another part-time truck, has to qualify on time. Now, this is currently the only planned race for the 55, as Breeding is set to run the number 8 for 4 races after Daytona. Those races have yet to be announced. And it's a 47.175 by Breeding. That'll kick Murdo out of the top 8. And currently, as Chase Dunbar takes the track, we've got 3 trucks left. Toby Christie now locked into the race on speed as well. So in the danger zone, Mac Johnson, Charles Sanford, and Jared Vereshchagin. As Dunbar begins his lap, already going about 188 there at the line, and 190 into turn number 1. Murdo also in a good spot to use a provisional along with Seth Cole. The one driver in big danger here is Jared Vereshchagin. Vereshchagin could make this race using a provisional, but he would need either Dunbar here or Lane Sanders in the 8, which are both part-time trucks, to have a lap time that puts them outside of the top 8. And Dunbar's lap is going to be good enough to get him in the show, a 47.180. As we now ride on board with Lane Sanders as he gets up to speed. If Charles Sanford is knocked out of the top 8, he will not qualify for the race. If Mac Johnson is knocked out of the top 8, that will prevent the 37 from using a provisional to make the field. As the 23, 98, 24, and 35 will outrank the 37 in the provisional order. In fact, the 2 of Chase Marks would outrank Jared Vereshchagin in the provisional order. So Vereshchagin's fate pretty much held in the hands here of Lane Sanders. And it's looking pretty grim for the 37, but this is one of the few races this year we're currently looking at entry list scheduling. Likely not going to be a lot of go or go home qualifying here in 2024. And it's a 47.136 by Lane Sanders. And that currently shows Vereshchagin using a provisional, but it is mute for him at this point as Chase Marks takes the racetrack for his lap. Ellison, so far, the only driver to run faster than a 47.1, but Chase Marks looks really quick. 189 at the start-finish line. And a solid 191 going into turn 1. Can he hold 190 through the entire corner? He will do just that. How fast will Marks get the truck up to? Solid 192 into turn 3. Back down to about 190, but right back up to 191. And into the tri-oval, 192 mile an hour, a 46.927 for the number 2 of Chase Marks. And that will absolutely shatter The lap set by Griffin Leopold McDermott last year, 42 one-thousandths of a second faster, is chase marks this year compared to Griffin Leopold McDermott's lap last year, and that'll mean Charles Sanford and Jared Vereshchagin do not qualify for this year's Daytona 250k. That'll set Mac Johnson 39th, Benedict Myrtle III in 40th, Gutierrez 41st, and Seth Cole in 42nd. As we will now figure out where the rest of the 38 drivers in the field will start. First one up here out of the top 30 is J.D. Martin, who's now driving the number 75 for Little Falls Motorsports. JD was with Martin Motorsports for several years, following an interesting chain of events that was him signing a long-term extension with Tommy Roberts Racing, which then sold their stuff to Martin Motorsports, and then JD's deal had to be honored by the team. So JD, a very bad lap time for someone who's locked in a 47.520. Thankfully, it is just Daytona and not Martinsville, where track position is important right off the bat. Next driver on track is the number 4 of Eric Monaco, and you might be thinking, number 4? Mitsubishi? Anjato, no longer in the Napa Truck Series. If you missed that memo too, that was a pretty big bombshell. Anjato out of the Napa Truck Series, shutting down their team to focus on the Sony Cup Series this year. And Anjato also made the switch to Mitsubishi, as this is Volunteer Motorsports, new truck number 4. And Volunteer Motorsports also making the switch to Mitsubishi. Full support from Mitsubishi Motorsports. And Monaco sticking with the team for another year after an abysmal 2023 filled with a ton of DNQs. And this team got owner points for the start of the season. And Monaco will set a time of a 47.241. And that will currently place him 9th. So first 2 drivers from the top 30 locked-in drivers are slower than the go or go home top 8. Bradley Ream on track next. Young Motorsports only entry for the 2024 season. And same paint schemes for this team this year from last year. A year ago, Ream was one of the last drivers to qualify following a great single truck practice run. I don't quite recall where he qualified, for the race itself. But this is currently not tracking to be a really good lap time. Not looking to be a bad lap time either. But so Ream running the Realtree colors will mean we'll have 2 Realtree trucks in the field. And as Ream comes around to complete his lap, it'll be a 47.332. And that'll slot him behind Eric Monaco. Next up on track is the number 89, driven by Tristan Grace, as Aiden Smith, team owner of Nova Sport, has made the move up to the Hardee's National Series. Tristan Grace ran a handful of races for Red Stallion Racing last year before the team, collapsed in its own turn of controversy. So Grace, a full-time contender for Rookie of the Year here in the Napa Truck Series, driving the Pump It Up number 89, which is pretty much the same scheme. On the new Chevy body, there's new Chevy stickers this year, new Toyota stickers this year as well. And one interesting thing to note about this year is that due to the new Chevy and Toyota bodies, the series officials had them conform to make it on the same chassis style as the other 5 manufacturers. So all 5 chassis, or all 7 manufacturers rather, all running on the same chassis style for the entirety of the season. Now, that does not necessarily mean everyone's got the same stuff, but it's going to be, I believe, a lot closer aerodynamically and chassis-wise between a lot of the top teams. Now, here's a guy, or a buddy, if you will, hailing from Australia, son of long-time Sony Cup Series driver Zachary Fitzwater Sr. It's old Junior out there in the number 91 Hugo Boss Mercedes for Freeze Racing Team. And the number 91 truck, which was a part-time entry driven by DJ Curtis and James Silverfox last year, becomes a full-time effort as the number 77 goes part-time with Curtis instead. Fitzwater Jr., already a 2-time V8 Supercars champion at the ripe young age of 18 years old. And Fitzwater Jr. will likely be someone worth watching when we head to the road courses, as this looking to be a pretty good lap time, a 47.176. And Fitzy Jr. is the first of the top 30 drivers to slot himself in front of several of the Go or Go Home top 8. It took six drivers for someone to beat Toby Christie, Samuel England, and Chase Dunbar's lap time, but it was done. Next up on track is the first of the 3 full-time S3 Motorsports trucks, and that is the number 5 of Arya Carmona. Carmona had a pretty good year last year after missing the first 2 races, as she was a TJ Smith Incorporated driver at the beginning. Ended the year with 2 top 5s and 5 top 10s, with an average finish of 22nd. Carmona looking for a much better year this year with S3 Motorsports. We know she'll likely be a threat on the road courses, considering her success at Cleveland in the Hardee's National Series several seasons ago. She comes around to complete her lap time. A 47.268 puts her currently in 11th. Now, one interesting thing to note, as Ryan Reed will begin his lap for the number 44 Freeze Racing Team truck. Chevys were pretty bad in qualifying last year. I don't believe we had a Chevy start inside the top 30 last year. That currently trending to be better, as currently highest Chevrolet is James Ellison in 2nd place. So he will definitely be at least in the top 30, as Ryan Reed setting a pretty good lap here. Ryan Reed, longtime driver for Texan Motorsports, which recently shut down this past offseason. Reed, big buddy with Vince Freeze. They had an opening for this truck. Reed was like, "Give it to me, man." And with a time of a 47.037, Ryan Reed will jump up to 3rd on the board. Only the 3rd driver to run a lap time faster than a 47.1. So Reed looking to start the year off hot with a good qualifying effort. Hannah Allen, next driver on track, another driver dipping down to the Napa Truck Series. Allen driving the number 48 Verizon Toyota, which was driven by Malik Nevins last year. A bit of a down year for Nevins it was. Just 1 top 5 and 3 top 10s for Nevins, who now will look to find better success in the Hardee's National Series. Hannah Allen coming down from the Sony Cup Series with Breeding Enterprises. And Allen, a Napa Truck Series winner once before, back at Talladega in 2020. But Breeding Enterprises making the switch to Toyota might caused them to stumble just a little bit at the beginning of the year, but they are a long-time team of the series, so I don't expect that stumbling to last too long. And it's a pretty good lap by Hannah Allen at 47.129, which will slot her into 5th ahead of part-time teammate Lane Sanders. Got another Mercedes on the racetrack. This time it's the 28 of Austin Rogers, who has a superspeedway win in his career dating back to Pensacola in 2022. Last year, Austin Rogers drove for Silver Fox Motorsports. He drove the number 82. This year he's in the number 28 as a teammate and mentor Luke Martin has switched from the 28 to the 6. Was not an ideal year for Austin Rogers. Missed 2 races and just 2 top 5s and 3 top 10s. Alpine Stars and Fanta back on this truck for 2024. Coming to the line, it's going to be a 47.155, and that'll put him 7th, just behind Lane Sanders. Next on track is another Breeding Enterprises entry, Bradley Bishop Jr. electing to stay in the Napa Truck Series for the final season. This was a big wild card in free agency for a month or two, as a lot of drivers and teams were thinking BBJ back to the Hardee's National Series, BBJ up to the Sony Cup Series. Nope. BBJ has elected to stay in the Napa Truck Series. But many are wondering if he knew that this team was going to switch to Toyota, as Bradley Bishop Jr. has been a long Dodge Ram driver in his FBRL career, but he doesn't seem to mind. There's been no news of him being against this switch to Toyota, and he is sticking around with Breeding Enterprises all the same. But not an ideal lap time here that you would think the 88 would be capable of. Just a 47.217 puts BBJ in 11th. Next on track is Easy Racing's number 08 entry. This year driven by Benjamin Snyder. Snyder drove for Morris Motorsports for most of the year last year, recording a single top 10 finish through 14 starts. Now, this number 08 truck made this race last year on a provisional and then found a way to finish on the podium. That was with Justin Johnson, who is no longer in the FBRL in any capacity. And Easy Racing got a pair of well, not even a pair. I don't know if you call it a pair, a set. He got one piece of the owner points from Anjato, and that locked Easy Racing into the first 4 races of the year, as Snyder sets a time of a 47.235, putting him 14th. Now riding on board with 2021 Napa Truck Series champion Luke Martin, as he sets out to begin his lap time here around Daytona. Luke qualified 4th last season. We'll have to see if he can match that effort this year, as he now drives his famous number 6 number that helped him make a name for himself over his long Sony Cup Series career. As many know, Luke Martin, 2020 Sony Cup Series champion, and then followed it up with the 2021 Napa Truck Series Championship. Came up short in 2022 of a Hardee's National Series Championship, and said, the heck with it. Back to trucks I go. And the most winningest driver, tied with Ryan Butcher at 10 wins apiece in Napa Truck Series history. Luke going to look to break that tie with Ryan Butcher, as Butcher currently with no planned starts on the season. Milwaukee Tools and Coca-Cola back to sponsor Luke again this year. And as he comes around to the line, it's looking to be a pretty good lap. Not as good as last year, as it's a 47.114. That'll currently place Luke in 5th place. Next up is a driver that started the year last year with Single Z Racing, then dipped to try to go Hardee's Racing, then didn't like how things were going in Hardee's. Tried to get back in Napa, but couldn't, and just kind of did nothing in the second half of the year. Well, he's back in Napa now and set to compete full-time with S3 Motorsports. Sponsorship from Dollar General and Stouffer's, moving from the number 5 truck over to the number 56. As Ricky Freeman Jr. begins his lap. Now, Freeman ran 7 races in 2023 with Single Z. He didn't get a top 10, but he did get some points. Remember, last year we ran the top 20 points format. This year we are running full field points format once again. But a lot different payout, for sure. But so as Freeman comes around to complete his lap, it's going to be a 47.316, and that puts him 3rd slowest out of the drivers that have put times down from the top 30 field. That's going to put Ricky Freeman Jr. currently in 19th. So not a good time. About similar to the time Sanford set in the number 00. And just a smidge slower than teammate Carmona. As AJ Jones is out on track. Remember, Jones qualified in 2nd place 1 year ago, just 5 1,000ths of a second slower than GLM's lap. And now remember, Shark House Performance is now the 1, the 2, and the 42, along with the 21, which is part-time. As Shark House acquired the assets of Coyote Autosport. Now looking at the 42 through turns 1 and 2, that was not as good of a corner as Chase Marks in the number 2 had. But this is looking to be a pretty good lap nonetheless. So far, Marks' lap looks like an anomaly in the Matrix. As AJ Jones will still set a really good lap, a 47.065. Puts him P4, 4th driver to run a lap faster than a 47.1. Now here's the guy that sat on the pole last year, Griffin Label McDermott, this year driving the number 85 Mitsubishi from Martin Motorsports. So GLM going to look to try and back up his lap. Let's see if he really has a shot at it. Oh, it doesn't look like he will. Oh, this lap doesn't look like it might be good at all. The Mitsubishi showed good pace in their single truck runs, but perhaps some adjustments that should not have been made or were made in the wrong direction, as this truck appears to be slower than expected. Now, Griffin Label McDermott, he made 5 starts for Single Z's 84 truck last year. Had an average finish of 21st along with the pole. Now, he had an average starting position of 14th. He had a lot of pace and a lot of bad luck. But Griffin Label McDermott had a great year full-time in the Hardee's National Series last year, and he's looking to have a even better year here in the Napa Truck Series, but it's not going to be one where he starts at the front as he sets a 47.371. And that is a miserable lap time for GLM, not what he wanted at all. Next on track is the 92 driven by Aiden Carlton, first of just 2 full-time trucks for Single Z Racing this year, as the number 84 entry will be part-time throughout the year with Riker Haverman. Carlton came into this number 92 truck following Ricky Freeman Jr.'s departure. And in 12 races, Carlton, as a brand new driver, had an average finish of 29th and recorded 3 points on the season. Carlton hoping for what will be considered a better sophomore season in his first full-time effort. This is not tracking to be a terrible lap by any means, as it's a 47.303. That'll place him in 20th. The other Volunteer Motorsports truck now out on track, the number 9, driven by Ben McDonnell. Now, Ben McDonnell was arguably the true rookie of the year if you take away the drop-down drivers such as Ryan Griffin and so forth. Ben McDonnell finished the year 31st in points. Actually, Michael Miller had a better true rookie season than McDonnell, so I'll retract that. But as far as drivers that made all 22 races, actually even Josh Crash did better. I'm sorry, Ben. This went terrible. Totally just contradicted myself like 3 times. I'm recording this just trying to have a good time, so we're going to keep it, get a good laugh out of it. But McDonnell, 31st in points, 1 top 10, 30 points on the season. Consistently qualified at the back. Average qualifying position of 32nd. Now, not all to Ben's fault, but he did drive for North Border Motorsports, which started the year good and then just didn't keep up with everybody else. But it looks like it's going to be a decent start for McDonnell as he sets a 47.169. That'll place him P10. And he currently is tracking to be the highest starting Mitsubishi. Final S3 Motorsports truck out on track. It's the Nesquik Chevrolet driven by Jeff Bolton, who, remember, was it last year? 2 years ago. 2 years ago, lucked into a top 10 with Genesis Engineering after Kyle Vaughters blew a tire on the white flag caution lap. Not too bad of a lap so far for Bolton. This might be the best lap out of all the S3 trucks. Chevrolet definitely doing better than they did a year ago. Highest Chevy is still James Ellison, which is a Crossroads truck. The S3 trucks have been nowhere close, which is odd. And Bolton with a 47.208 is going to change that just a little bit. He places 14th. Last Shark House Performance truck out on track, and it's the number 1 Harley-Davidson Ford of William Brock. And William Brock has arguably become the most dangerous driver in the Napa Truck Series. 4 wins, 9 top 5s, 12 top 10s, 2 poles last season. And all those wins coming on different kinds of racetracks. Ended up 63 points short of Ace Wild for the championship, but Brock is by far the favorite to win it all here in 2024. As remember, he ended 2022 with 2 wins towards the end of that season as well. Now the big difference is going to be the difference in ownership, but AJ Jones has been Brock's teammate for the last 2 years. And he would not have kept Brock around if he didn't think Brock could handle a race truck. At the line, it's going to be a 47.100, and that'll slot William Brock right behind A.J. Jones in P5. Kyle Sustry, next driver on track. New truck. Well, not really new truck. It's the number 31 Santander Mitsubishi of Revolution Racing. Revolution Racing now a 2-truck team, as they have had reinforced full support from Mitsubishi Motorsports for the season. Sustry in the 39, Nelson Reeves, former Team Velocity driver, going to be in the number 99. As this team now, like I said, full Mitsubishi support alongside Martin Motorsports and new Mitsubishi team, Volunteer Motorsports. As Team Velocity left the Napa Truck Series to go Hardy's National Series Racing for this final season. Mitsubishi so far been a mixed bag here in qualifying today. They were, like I said, solid in single truck runs the other day. Sustry will place 15th with a 47.201, so that puts him about middle of the road of McDonald and Monaco. Austin Runkle next up on track. Now, if James Ellison's lap time is any indication of the potential pace Crossroads has, this number 3 truck could be contender for a top 5 spot, but we'll find out here for sure. The Speedway Chevrolet coming to start his lap, and just going to be shy of 188 at the line. That's been the big number to look for to indicate a strong lap, is 188 miles an hour before the start-finish line. Not the case here for Austin Runkle. Potentially could still be a pretty solid lap compared to what we've seen from the S3 Motorsports drivers. Now, if you look at all the lap times on the right-hand side of the screen, I just want to point out that these times are all really close compared to a year ago. A year ago, J.D. Martin would not have been alone in the 47.5 bracket out of drivers making the race. There were a lot of drivers running 5s, 4s, 6s, 7s, and 8s. Well, not a lot, but if you just combine them all, as Runkle will place 21st. Oof. That was a 47.240. So 0.2 off of Ellison. But as Nelson Reeves takes the track, and we're down to our last 9 drivers. Pardon me. This is not looking like it's going to be a good lap for Reeves at all. Barely 187 at the line. But to the point, so drivers that set a lap time of, I'll say it this way, 47.4 or slower a year ago, there were a good number of them. If you look at the drivers so far this year, there are only 4 trucks that have gone slower than a 47.4. Benedict Murdo, Seth Cole, J.D. Martin, and Angel Gutierrez. That's it. And both trucks that did not qualify ran a 47.3. So it has been quite tight, as Reeves will run yet another 3. As we see, the leaderboard's going to change to just show those outside the top 20. Reeves with a 47.361. So another Mitsubishi truck that just completely missed the mark here. Similar to Griffin Label McDermott, despite a strong single truck run. So the Mitsubishis seem to have tried to gain something today from the single truck practice runs, and they have missed it. Well, actually, wait, maybe not for Edward Siemba. Strong 188 at the line, 190 out of the tri-oval. Not going to clip 191, is going to drop to 189 in the corner, but this is looking to be a strong lap for Siemba regardless. As Siemba, second to last Mitsubishi to take time. The only other one left will be James Silverfox. Siemba had a strong year last year, but he did not win a race for Onge Auto. Siemba ended up 8th in points with 3 top 5s and 9 top 10s. as teammate Bob Burns was the only Anj Auto driver to win a race last year. Burns had 1 win, 6 top 5s, and 10 top 10s, and finished 6th in the points, as Siema sets a time of a 47.049, and that'll place him in 4th place. So Siema beats the next highest Mitsubishi of Ben McDonnell by a full 1/10 of a second. Now here's the king, Richard Johnson. And back in a familiar number at that, Richard driving the number 20 Speed Hunters Ram this year for Monster Energy Racing, and the pace for MER showed on single truck practice day. And it is showing here once again as Richard takes the line at a $188. All 3 trucks for Monster Energy Racing inside the top 7. And Richard, he had a pretty mixed bag in Hardee's last year. To start the year, it was terrible for Richard. Tons of bad luck, crashes, mechanical problems, poorly timed cautions. But as the year went on, Richard slowly started to get things together and had quite the year. Came close to a win at Darlington, but was stopped by Dom Caps. But now Richard will look to find victory lane again here in the Napa Truck Series for the first time in his career, and it's a 47.026, and that'll put King Richard in 3rd place behind just Chase Marks and James Ellison. Jerry Cook on track next for Single Z Racing, driving the number 62 entry this year. This truck was driven by Josh Crash last year. Now, Jerry Cook drove for Martin Motorsports a year ago, came into the year following the first 3 races and following the Dubai controversy, which kicked Brett Houck out of the number 15 truck. And Cook did pretty good. Got his first top 10 in his first start at Road Atlanta. He came from a road course racing background. Cook would go on to get another top 10 on the season, and he finished it off 24th in points over 19 starts. So Cook looking to have a better sophomore season and contend for some wins, maybe some top 5s at the very least. And it's going to be a 47.262 for Cook. That's going to place him in 25th. As James Silverfox takes the track, this was the man to talk about on the short tracks last year. Talk about winning 2 races as a part-time driver, but talk about doing it in 2 different trucks. We saw Silverfox employ the undercut strategy at the Nashville Fairgrounds in, I believe it was in his own truck. And then he did it again in the Freeze part-time truck at Richmond. Overall, Silverfox only had those 2 wins and 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s in those 2 wins. But he still showed a ton of pace at Memphis before an untimely caution kind of killed his strategy. But so Silverfox, as part of his deal, when he signed Luke Martin to his team for 2023, he agreed to come drive for Martin Motorsports in 2024. And Silverfox, with a time of a 47.384, which is going to be worse than Griffin Lapel McDermott's time. So Mitsubishi, man, they had, look at that, 3 trucks that were top 15 in single truck Q are going to start outside the top 30. So they missed something when they made setup adjustments following those runs. Next on track is Cameron Lazard, and Cameron Lazard is hauling the mail. 189 at the start-finish line. This could be a threat to Chase Marks' time. 191 solid in the turn 1 for Lazard. Lazard coming down from the Hardee's National Series. following his rookie season in the FBRL. Driver from Canada, taking over for Tib Foster this year in the Toyo Tires number 47. My eyes might have been playing tricks on me, but I think that 47 might have clipped 193 right before he went in the corner. This is definitely going to be a hauling lap here. This is a threat for the pole for sure. And it is going to give him the pole, 46.884. And that is one hell of a lap. That'll boot Chase Marks off the pole here right towards the end. As next on track is the final Monster Energy Racing truck driven by Daniel Bouchard. Originally planned to be driven by Huck Davis. Huck Davis made late changes of plans to go run some rallycross instead. And Daniel Bouchard jumped into this truck, and Jordan Davis said, "Hey, I'll come back and I'll drive for you in a Sony Cup Series." So Huck Davis goes for rally racing, and Jordan Davis comes back to run in Sony Cup. Daniel Bouchard, who had yet to find a ride, kind of got lucky here and landed in this number 30 ride. So the number 30 was the number 36 team last year. The number 20 team of Richard Johnson is the number 30 team that won the championship with Ace Wild. It'll be a 47.006 for Bouchard, and that'll put him third. And currently all three Monster Energy Racing trucks lined up on the inside line. 2 drivers to go, and we're going to start it out with someone who's won here in the Hardee's National Series, and that is Noah Hart. Noah, like Richard Johnson, 2 drivers coming down from Hardee's over the age of 50 for this final FBRL season. And Noah, like Richard, has barely made any Napa Truck Series starts. Noah going to have sponsorship from Bass Pro Shops, Starcom Fiber, and potentially we'll see a Depends scheme. But so far looking to be a pretty good time for Noah Hart. Looking to be the best time so far by a Breeding Enterprises truck. As you see, Lane Sanders 13th, Hannah Allen 12th, Bradley Bishop Jr. 21st, and then Nick Breeding in the Morris Motorsports 55 sits in 16th. So none of those 4 trucks set a time faster than a 47.129. Noah Hart looking like he'll be the first to hit a 47.0 at the very least. And coming to the start-finish line, he is going to beat Daniel Bouchard's lap by 1/1000th of a second. It's a 47.005. And that brings us to our final truck to put down a time. And it's the number 10 of Zachary DeLello, who surprised a lot of people by being the fastest truck in single truck qualifying. So we saw the speed from James Ellison in the 31. We saw the difference in speed out of the number 3 of Austin Runkle. DeLello coming down from the Hardee's National Series. This lap does not look like it'll be pole worthy. Barely 188 at the start-finish line. As we saw both Chase Marks and Lessard started their laps running 189. So a bit of a different year on lap times here as we watch this lap. Last year we had 3 times under a 47.0. We had a 46.969, a 974, and a 994. This year I believe we had a lot more times in the 47.0 bracket, including 3 lap times from Noah Hart, Daniel Bouchard, and James Ellison, which were under a 47.025. But Chase Marks with a 927 and Lessard with an 884 that both beat GLM's lap DeLello sits a 47.221. And as we slide away from track coverage, rookies Cameron Lazard and Chase Marks will sit on the front row for the 2024 Daytona 250k. Monster Energy Racing and Trackhouse Performance are showing the best combined pace out of this qualifying day. So there you see it, Lazard, Marks, front row, Noah Hart, Danny Bouchard, row 2, Ellison, Richard Johnson, row 3, Ryan Reed, Edward Siemba, row 4, with teammates A.J. Jones and William Brock in row 5. As Zachary DeLello will start 23rd, owner points giving him the nod over Samuel England. They will start together on row number 12. Tristan Grace also gets the nod over Aiden Carlton due to owner points. They will both sit on row 16. As you see, a couple of shockers from today. Griffin Label McDermott, James Silverfox, 36th and 37th. As you see the drivers that made the field on Provos and those that did not qualify. I will see you guys for the Daytona 250k in hopefully a week, but no promises.